Once upon a time there was a poor old woman who had an only son named Jack and a cow named Milky. All they had to live on was the milk the cow gave every morning, which they carried to the market and sold. But one morning Milky gave no milk, and they didn't know what to do.
"What shall we do? What shall we do?"
said the widow.
"We must sell Milky the cow,"
she said. "All right, mother," says Jack. "I will take her to market today and sell her." He hadn't gone far when he met a funny-looking old man who said to him, "Good morning, Jack." "Good morning to you," said Jack, and wondered how he knew his name. "Well, Jack, and where are you off to?" said the man. "I'm going to market to sell our cow." "It's lucky I met you," said the man. "Would you be interested in a trade?" "What do you have to trade?" asked Jack. 5 magic beans, my friend," said the man. "If you plant them, by the next morning they'll grow up and reach the sky," said the funny-looking man. "Done!" cried Jack, who was so delighted with the bargain that he ran all the way home to tell his mother how lucky he had been. But oh, how disappointed she was.
"Off to bed with you,"
she cried, and she was so angry that she threw the beans out of the window into the garden. So poor Jack went to bed without any supper and cried himself to sleep. When he woke up the next morning, the room was almost dark, and Jack jumped out of bed and ran to the window to see what was the matter. The sun was shining brightly outside, but from the ground right up beside his window there was growing a great beanstalk, which stretched up and up as far as he could see, into the sky. Jack jumped outside and quickly started climbing the beanstalk all the way up into the clouds. He found himself standing at the front doors of a big, beautiful castle. Jack knocked on the door, and a giant woman answered. "Good morning, ma'am," says Jack, quite polite-like. "Could you be so kind as to give me some breakfast?"
"It's breakfast you want, is it?"
says the great big tall woman.
"It's breakfast you'll be if you don't move off from here. My husband is an ogre, and there's nothing he likes better than little boys on toast. You'd better be moving on, or he'll soon be coming."
"Oh, please, ma'am, do give me something to eat. I've had nothing to eat since yesterday morning, really and truly, ma'am," says Jack. Well, the giant's wife wasn't such a bad sort after all, so she took Jack into the kitchen and gave him some bread and cheese and a jug of milk. But Jack hadn't half finished these when thump, 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 the whole house began to tremble with the noise of someone coming.
"Goodness gracious me, it's my husband," said the giant's wife. "What on earth shall I do? Here, come quick and jump in here."
And she bundled Jack into the oven just as the giant came in. He was a big one, to be sure. At his belt he had 3 sheep strung up by the heels, and he unhooked them and threw them down onto the table and said, "I'm here for breakfast." "Ah, what's this I smell? Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be he alive or be he dead, I'll have his bones to grind my bread."
"Nonsense, dear," said his wife. "You're dreaming, or perhaps you smell the scraps of that little boy you liked so much for yesterday's dinner. Go and have a wash and tidy up, and by the time you get back, your breakfast will be ready for you." So the giant went off, and Jack was just going to jump out of the oven and run off when the woman told him not to. "Wait till he's asleep,"
says she. Then Jack crept out on tiptoe from the oven, and as he was passing the giant, he took a bag of gold under his arm, and off he ran till he came to the beanstalk. He threw down the bag of gold, which of course fell into his mother's garden, and then he climbed down, till at last he got home, and told his mother and showed her the gold, and said, "Well, mother, wasn't I right about the beans? They are really magical, you see." They lived on the bag of gold for some time, but at last they came to the end of that. So one fine morning Jack got up early, and he climbed until at last he got to the doors of the castle. "Good morning, ma'am," says Jack. "Could you please give me something to eat?"
"Go away, my boy," said the giant woman, "or else my husband will eat you up for breakfast. But aren't you the youngster who came here once before? Do you know that very day my husband lost one of his bags of gold?"
"That's strange, ma'am," says Jack. "I could tell you something about that, but I'm so hungry I can't speak till I've had something to eat." Well, the woman wanted to know, so she gave him something to eat. He started eating when, thump, 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 they heard the giant's footsteps, and his wife hid Jack away in the oven. All happened as it did before. In came the giant, as he did before, saying, "Fee, fi, fo, fum." Then he said, "Wife, bring me the goose that lays the golden eggs." So she brought it, and the giant said, "Lay." And it laid an egg all of gold. And then the giant began to snore till the house shook. Then Jack crept out of the oven on tiptoe, and caught hold of the golden goose, and was off before you could say Jack Robinson. But this time, the goose gave a cackle which woke the giant, and just as Jack got out of the house, he heard him calling,
"Wife, wife, what have you done with my golden goose?"
The giant caught sight of Jack running out of the kitchen door. With a fearful roar, he chased after Jack, who held the goose tight and ran faster than he had ever run before. The giant, carrying his club and taking big, long strides, gained on Jack at every instant, and he would have been caught if the giant had not tripped over a boulder. Before he could pick himself up, Jack began to climb down the beanstalk, and when the giant arrived at the edge, he was nearly halfway to the cottage. The giant began to climb down too. But as soon as Jack saw him coming, he called out, "Mother, bring me an axe!" And the widow hurried out with a chopper. Jack had no sooner reached the ground than he cut the beanstalk right in two. Down came the giant with a terrible crash, and that was the end of him. Jack and his mother grew very rich with the golden goose and helped everyone in the village, and they all lived happily ever after. The end.